Good morning, everyone. My name is John Sikorsky, and I'm a licensed psychologist at TRIA. I was just asked to create a video for the December Resiliency Month, and I know there's been a lot of information coming out about burnout and yoga and a bunch of different things you can do to incorporate into your life to maybe find a little bit more margin as we're dealing with the stress of the pandemic and holiday season and all of that. But what I wanted to just add to this conversation is just a practical consideration that time itself cannot be created. We cannot make time to do more things during the day. We can only take time to prioritize things that are important to us. And a lot of times, especially since the start of this pandemic, we get pushed with a lot of strategies, and you need to cope and you need to do more and eat kale and meditate and go for walks and take up Pilates and all of this stuff. Well, you get to a point where the coping strategies have become so robust that it's hard to do much else. And when we feel like we constantly need to engage in coping, it's difficult to just live life because our brain interprets then, or starts to interpret, going to work or seeing friends or going to the grocery store as dangerous. So then that amygdala just kicks on and we're kind of in that fight or flight mode, which leads to irritability, insomnia, depression, for some people working in the very front lines of this, some PTSD. We're at a point now where about 20% of providers across the field probably are dealing with a new mental health diagnosis they haven't encountered for themselves before, primarily being depression, anxiety, insomnia, sometimes flash anger, and as I said, PTSD or substance abuse. And the concept that I just want to get across here is that a lot of times, when we have these prolonged stressors, happiness is not whatever you're doing plus adding in another few things. Because oftentimes what happens is that metric of where we find happiness is always just another step ahead. So when we get here, we're like, well, I started exercising, I still don't feel it. I guess I'll, take up painting, or I'll take up yoga, or I'll take up meditation, because whatever I'm doing is not enough. And your efforts really to this point have been enough. We've had 500,000 providers leave the profession nationally. 500,000 due to the pandemic, not due to retirement, not due to anything else, but just burnout. But you're here. And when we're dealing with the pandemic, our brain, again, creates these appraisals, worrying about things. Oftentimes our initial appraisal of something is pretty negative, and that can startle us. And it might be like, wow, I just don't feel like myself. Why don't I want to do this? You might find that you're more impatient with your partner or your children or your pets, or someone cuts you off on the street and it's like, I'm filled with this rage and I'm kind of scared where my mind goes. What I want to hammer home is that you are not your thoughts. We're what we do. And the fact that our brains can interpret things negatively and we don't follow through on those is evidence that you are a good person, that you're not broken. And it's hard sometimes to feel like, oh, I need to just change how I think and I need to look on the positive and all of that. Well, in the effort of doing that, especially during a 2-year pandemic, your brain might start to argue with you. So you might ask yourself then, well, what do I do when my brain creates, these negative appraisals, or it starts thinking about stuff I don't want to think about? Well, our brains don't operate in the negative, so if I told you not to think about a purple elephant, your brain instantly is going to start thinking about a purple elephant. If people say, don't think about work stress, you're going to think about work stress. Same thing with pain, same thing with loss, trauma, all of that. But what we can do is create room for those emotions to be here. And when we say create room, that doesn't mean that we just are okay with the emotion and we just accepted it and we embrace it. No, it's saying, instead of being like, all right, these are my anxiety goggles and I'm going to put them on and now everything I'm looking at is shrouded in this lens of anxiety. It's saying, can I kind of give that feeling a shape? If this is anxiety, my anxiety pen, I'm noticing it has a boundary and I can, tuck it in my pocket and I can take it with me and give it room to be there instead of feeling like I'm stuck playing tug of war with it. With anxiety, especially if you don't want it, you got it. So we are the container of the emotions. We're not just the emotions. We are the container of the thoughts. We're not our thought. Just like if you were to push your foot, really hard into the ground, you might feel the sensation in your foot, but you're not just that sensation, you're the whole body. Our brain might interpret something or start going off on a little tangent, but we're not those thoughts. Again, we're what we do. We're the container of those thoughts. So with the pandemic and just this holiday season, being able to let your behaviors guide your decision making is a lot easier than trying to control how I think and feel about a situation. Our emotions follow what we do. With that though, again with the concept that we can't create time, we can only take time, there's a lot of pressure in medicine and in the wellness sphere of maximizing your free time. So you have a holiday coming up and I got to maximize everything I do. I got to see all the family, within reason, try to attend a lot of parties, but in the effort of doing that, it comes at the cost of actually enjoying the activities we're involved in. If we have a party at 10 for gift opening, but we have a lunch at my other parents at 1, and then we have a dinner at the in-laws at 5, we're not enjoying those moments in between. We're always feeling rushed. So we're kind of sampling instead of savoring these experiences. So it's a little bit of a dance of addition by deletion. Sometimes we got to be able to say no to those things that we feel like we should do, so we can say yes to the things that we really want to do. And that's not a bad thing. No is oftentimes a complete statement. And when we get asked or pulled in like 45 different directions, sometimes the best thing you can say is just, no, that doesn't align with my priorities or my values at the moment. So focus on the behavior. Again, our emotions tend to follow what we do. Prioritize those things that are important to you. Try to savor them instead of sampling 45 different things over the next week, if you're out on break. But just know that this year has been hard. And if you're feeling like you're broken or you're isolated or you're like surprised at the content your brain creates or thinks about, again, you are not those thoughts. You can tell yourself, thank you, brain, for that lovely piece of information, but I'm gonna go do the thing I need to do. Or if you've watched Luca, the new Disney movie, there's a great cognitive diffusion strategy there where he goes, Silencio Bruno. Just kind of talk back to it a little bit, try to create room for it. And again, in doing so, it allows us to just focus on the behavior instead of trying controlling the emotion. So again, addition by deletion. Focus in on those priorities. Try to enjoy just a few small things than trying to maximize and push yourself to the limit, because oftentimes that comes at the cost of sleep. And if you don't sleep, you're not good for anybody. So with that, I hope you have a great holiday, and hang in there. Take care.